Hi. Hi, Danny. How are you?
I'm great. Is my mic muted or
Nope, I can hear you
okay?
perfectly. Yeah, we are good as long as you
Technology.
can hear me too.
I can hear you. Technology is telling me I'm muted, but they're
Nope,
lying. That
still
was a
good.
good intro. I like the no more risks.
Great.
That was funny. That was
Yep, I
catchy.
know. We're super excited about it. I'm glad you like it. It means a lot coming from you. It really
Yeah,
does.
absolutely.
And thank you for joining me today to discuss field marketing and women in spam. I really appreciate you taking the time. Just a quick intro here. I just want to say a couple of things up front. I don't want to make today's conversation about whether women belong in spam or field marketing. We know they already do, right? You know that. I know that. What I really want to talk about is the reality of the job. So the strategy, the pressure, the impact. And then there's this big piece of invisible work that I kind of want to highlight. And just introductory as an example, I'm just going to bring up an example. Let's say your sales representative walks into a meeting, already knows the executive's communication style, budget cycle, active initiatives, and also the question that moves the conversation from polite to meaningful and impactful. But then we have a field marketer hosted the exact same executive a month prior, and all she has is hoping that she will recognize him from his LinkedIn picture. Big difference,
I,
right?
Big difference, but if I may,
Yeah, of
I'd
course.
argue I'd argue that the salesperson is on the same page as the field marketer in many cases as well.
You
So.
probably, yes, you're so right. And the funny thing about is the person on the buying side is the same, but there are clearly differences in the intelligence and data that people have at their fingertips. So
Mhm.
let's talk today a little bit about what would it take to make the impact of field marketing more visible, and then also build the structures that it has always deserved. But before we go into that, before we talk about what needs to change and all the hard stuff, just tell me a little bit about what got you into field marketing and what kept you there. What kept you there?
Ooh, okay. So this is a big question because I've always been a digital gal. I've been in the B2B tech marketing space for over 15 years now. 8 of those years in cybersecurity. And I've always been the girl behind the keyboard, helping the field marketing team, helping out AEs, RDs, figure out their regional events, out creative campaigns digitally, have as much exposure. And interestingly, like in my work as a marketer in-house, I'm not in-house anymore. I run my own agency, but in my work as an in-house marketer, there's always been this kind of like disconnect between field and digital, which is weird because you should be maximizing as much of the event as you can, getting as much exposure as you can digitally from that event. How did I even get into field? It was almost an accident, to be honest. Moving from that disconnect internal to shifting to, starting up my own buyer research agency 4 years ago, I started seeing the value in um, one-on-one interaction with human beings. And that started
Mhm.
out digitally, doing qualitative interviews online and then transferring that and distributing that as podcasts so people could learn for free about the buyers and get an OSINT for free essentially. And then I was like, okay, well, there's value in having focus groups because I don't see a lot of people doing in-person focus groups around core go-to-market problems. And that's how I kind of like lightly shifted into field marketing, if you will, because I
Okay.
had to find the venue, I had to, create all the logistics, and then I had to curate the guests, and I had to make sure that all the again, those logistics is the word. I mean,
Yes.
man, it was a nightmare. And at that point, it was around 2023, like early 2023, when I realized, wow, field marketers do not get enough credit. So that's when I kind of shifted in there. Fast forward, a few years later to, February, that's when I did a radical shift in my business to double downing on, um, is it double downing or doubling down? I don't know, whatever.
Don't ask a German.
I
English is my second language.
okay, so doubling down on field because of AI. And what do I mean by that? AI is serving us greatly, in my opinion. It has its downfalls, and one of those downfalls is um, silos and disconnection between actual, human connection and real life experience, because we're chatting with bots and with agents and with our devices, and we're allowing, automation to take over our efficiency, if you will, um, and the success of our programs. And so I think, if anything, now more than ever, and I think I've talked quite a bit now, but now more than ever, human proximity is a differentiator, especially in the security space. I still speak to cybersecurity leaders on the daily, doing qualitative research and understanding what makes them evaluate vendors, what makes them recognize them at the minimum.
Sure.
Human proximity, fun, engagement, immersive experience, authenticity, raw, and less of the corporate, stuffy, buttoned up fluff, which I call the messy, boring, beige middle. They want things that have never been done in this space. And a lot of that is in-person immersive experiences. And so now I'm all in on field.
You love it. That's awesome. And you hit on a couple of very interesting points here, because you said logistics, because there's this big logistics piece, but then you also talk about all the other things, because field marketing folks aren't just logistics, but it is this big piece that everybody thinks it is only. But there's the strategy work, the relationship work, which for you is huge, right? They're operators, they're revenue partners, there's so much. But when we think about field marketing, or a lot of people think about field marketing as the event only, they think field marketing is running an event, but it's part of a much larger operating system. So from your perspective, how much of the actual job happens actually before people get to the event or the venue for your in-person?
Like 80% of it.
We jumped right into the percentage. Yeah, okay, 80%.
90%.
Yeah, we thought 90. Yeah.
80% of it, and I'll kind of break it down. 80% of it is the ideation of the actual concept and the story you want to tell, which translate into the value you're providing your audience. Then it's who you're bringing in the room, which is also your moat. It's the people that come to the event. It's not how many come to the event. I'm still adamant that quality over quantity is the way to go, especially in the security space.
Yeah.
And that's the hardest part, because it requires a creative component. It requires a lot of brainstorming. It requires understanding your value proposition as a company really well, and then translating how the story you're telling at the event connects to even the features and the services and products that you provide as an extension of, okay, we came to the event, we're going to do another maybe 4 or 5 events after this, but here's how we lay up the offer for you from the event. Instead of making it hyper transactional, you're making it hyper value creation. And the natural byproduct of that experience is, oh my God, it makes sense what you guys do. Let's work with you tomorrow or in Q3 when we're evaluating.
Yeah, so there's a ton of work that goes into it, right? All around. When you think about that work, let me ask you personally, and I think you touched on that a little bit earlier, but as a marketer or field marketer, I think a lot of people have been feeling or have felt in the past under-recognized. Do you think that the problem is truly the recognition itself, or is it a lack of visibility?
I think it's the current status quo mindset of stakeholders in the organizations and how they view marketing as a whole, but how they specifically view events. And so unfortunately, those field marketers are kind of looped into a particular perception because of how stakeholders are viewing the quote unquote ROI of the events or the use of the events, right? It's not only for transactions, it's to build relationships at the end of the day, especially in highly skeptical buyer markets like cybersecurity, where these people are inundated with, email and social and even events like steak dinners and, golf outings, all of the same beige, messy middle. So it's unfortunate. And I think there needs to be a mindset shift. And I think we're at like a really interesting moment where that can happen, because the sky's the limit in terms of what we can do in the field. especially now with AI and with the resources at our fingertips to make these experiences really unique and beneficial for our buyers and our businesses at the same rate. Does that make sense?
It does, yeah, 100%. And you said something, I think it kind of ties it back into my next point, which is you said with the opportunities we have now and AI, because I think what a lot of people talk about is the people side and the relationship side. But when we talk about recognition, recognition starts with measurement, and measurements require infrastructure and visibility. So while the Women in SPAM movement names the gap between the presence and the power, what we hear less about are those mechanisms and the systems that leaders use to measure the impact. Like today, marketing value is still measured by tools that are built for digital conversion, right? Everything is sort of like you said, what's the ROI? What's the last point of connection, contact? What really closed the deal? But it doesn't always consider everything that happened on the relationship side before actually that opportunity was created. And I think that's a super important point. Do you want to talk a little bit maybe about last touch attribution? And I've heard that it's been criticized for years, right, in a way. But why do you think that's a topic, and why has it stuck around for so long?
Because people need something to report on. Like, do I want to talk about it? No. But like, people need something to report on. It's like, oh, well, what's the ROI of that? Like what brought the deal in? Well, there were 5 or 6 touches that helped contribute to the deal. Well, does it matter which one like converted it at the end of the day and they get all the money and recognition? No, I think it's a culmination of different touch points. So like whether it's first touch or last touch, I don't know. Does it matter? Like, honestly, I'm asking, like, again, with my business model, it's like, I know what works and what converts. So it's different than, cybersecurity vendor, but maybe some people will call me out on my BS now, but, I don't know. Like,
I don't think so. Cause you're saying the
yeah.
key word, right? Like what converts, like when you think about measurements by nature, and I'm in operations, right? We measure most easily what's easy to track, what's right in front of us. So I think it's sort of structural and human nature to say, oh, this person touched this last, and then here's what happened, versus considering looking at the big picture.
Exactly, and that's the key word here is the big picture, because a lot of the big picture you can't really see in the tracking. Like when I talk to security leaders, I'm like, well, they shared with me like, oh, well, I didn't click like on this and I didn't convert through here, but I watched the video and I clicked in to see who the person is through that video. And then I researched on my own, are they large enough for me to work with? Because we can't work with vendors who are under a specific employee count. And then do I know that CISO that they're talking about? Do I know that RD in that region? Like there are things we do not see. And I think we kind of default into the tracking so that we feel good as an organization about what we're tracking, and then we can go say, oh, we justified the budget for that program. But a lot of the times you can't justify the budget because there are hidden signals that you just do not see unless you pick up the phone and you talk to your buyers collectively to see what is the true buyer's journey that got them to convert. And 80% of the vendors out there, I'd say that's a really good number. I would say maybe 95% of them are not doing that exercise because they're busy doing trivial tactics, like figuring out attribution. Sorry, I will say it.
No, and I mean, obviously, I think those are very important points. And to me, the relationship side and what you're talking about and the signals that you may be picking up and things that you may be saying that a system may not be able to pick up are so important. But when we talk about, because I think it's a big topic around measurements and figuring out what actually created that opportunity, particularly for field marketing, because when we talk recognition, how can we recognize progress or impact if we can't measure it? And I do feel that there is this, and please correct me, or if you feel differently, please share with me. Of course, I think there is this gap between sales and field marketing and an industry that builds systems around the easiest thing to measure, that final action before the conversion. It made reporting cleaner, but it didn't give anybody a complete picture. And I feel that field marketing is paying a high price for that convenience now in the long run, because the recognition just hasn't been there. And it's more than people just trying to network, right? We're talking about people trying to name and validate work they have been doing that has been overlooked. How do you agree? How do you feel?
I agree.
What this
Yeah,
is to?
yeah, you nailed it. I agree. I'm still wondering why there's this disconnect between sales and marketing and sales and field marketing. I think that's a whole other session, which I'm happy to dig into, because I haven't done the 2026 version of the disconnect yet. So happy to take that forward. But yeah, I agree.
Well, we're absolutely open to it. Let me ask you this question, because we are talking about women in spam.
Hmm.
Field marketing is often run by women, while a lot of the infrastructure investments went towards sales historically. Does that change how you think about the visibility gap in the profession, just as a general observation?
Um, Honestly, no. Um, I'm um I'm unique though in my thoughts about that kind of stuff. So I try not to think of those friction points or issues, which maybe is a little, how do you say, what's the word in English? I also speak Hebrew, so sometimes my brain goes to a different language. Um, Maybe it's a little ignorant on my part. Um, but I just think if you do the good work, then people see you. Like, I don't know. I haven't had that, myself being a woman and also being a gay
Sure.
woman, haven't really had those issues. Maybe it's a personality thing. I don't know, but haven't been exposed to those kinds of stigmas, or
No, that's
stereotypes.
great. No, I think that's great, and thank you for sharing so open and honestly your insight. And I have to say, for me, there's always this balance, right? Because we're talking about genders here, and we don't want to make assumptions, and we don't want to
Yeah.
say one thing is bad over the other. That's not true. This is really just an observation, because patterns of investment can tell us something. What that something is a different story, right? And then
Mm.
I think what you're saying is very interesting, because we don't have to focus on it that way specifically. Um, and I think communities like Women in Spam resonate with people for other reasons, right? They're not just talking about career growth, they're talking about identity, recognition, belonging. And that's where this comes in a little bit, particularly, I think, for women in cybersecurity too. I come from an organization where we helped women in cybersecurity connect and grow and learn together. And there's just room for this. There's just a space for this. But I do feel that Women in Spam, with popping up so actively in 2026, like there is a reason why it's resonating so much right now. If you had to sort of put a finger on it, why do you think that is resonating right now? Why do you think Women in Spam is trending?
Um, our kick-ass ability to multitask, our kick-ass ability to
Yes,
be super creative and tap into storytelling.
yes.
Um, I don't know, maybe this is a stereotype where, like, maybe we're less analytical and more thinking with our, what is the specific part of the brain?
The creative side of the
The
brain, the
creative side
creative
of the
side.
brain. But I'd kind of connect it to our ability to think creatively, tell really good stories, and multitask all of those in one.
That's
And
hard
also
to.
there is sorry, go for it.
No, I was going to say that's hard to find in people, to find all of those things. And
Oh yeah, yeah, very very hard to. And don't get me wrong, there are some, men who are just fantastic at this as well. Like, women in spam, like, we're good faces of brands too. I don't know. That's
I think that's
cut
super
that
important.
cut that
No,
out.
no, 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 because I think these are pieces that haven't been a topic in the past. I think that's really important. I think
I
women
don't
have.
want it to come across as like me thinking it's okay to exploit somebody's looks, but we look great. You know
I
what I
don't.
mean?
And I think you can say it like that. I don't think that comes across as exploit, because the reality is women have been faces of brands for a long time. And this
Yeah.
is sort of that disparity of the gap, right, between the power and that I was talking about
Yeah.
earlier. I mean, that's what it is, and I think that's fair to say. And I do think that that's why Women in Spam is resonating right now, because there is this huge impact of those people that do sort of the invisible work, because it's more than just an event, and they're now
Yeah.
finding a language for something that I have felt for a long time. Like field marketing was never just fluff and fun and events, right? It is always strategy. And
Yeah.
I think now people are seeing that. The industry behind sales enablement has been around for 20, 30 years and has taken billions of dollars to build. Field marketing was not even a named category. It didn't have that equivalent, right? Like marketing was there, but field marketing as a category wasn't even named. And the infrastructure we have in sales that took billions to build just isn't there yet. And because recognition matters, and because recognition usually follows that visibility of measurements and systems, I think it's just missing. Because the industry has just rewarded the thing that it could measure the easiest, which was usually the final touch before the sale.
Yeah.
And it just
Yes.
happens to be that there are a lot of women in field marketing or marketing and a lot of men in sales. Now, of course, those lines are blurring everywhere. We know this, right? So I don't want to generalize that too much either. But it's a real and honest topic.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think we can say that because it's, that's, we were talking about women in spam. So
Yeah. Well, I'd even say like I especially in the security space, I run community events. I run events. There are so many, you know, males in the industry, and I'm like, I need my girls out there. Like I need more females with me at front and center. I feel like it's lacking a little bit. So there are a lot of women in spam, but I want more externalization of their activity and their, of them spearheading these programs. They shouldn't sit in the back seat or behind the keyboard.
yeah, maybe if there was better ways to attribute, the ROI and having not just that last touch model and having attribution models that can read the event as a touch point, would help them feel more recognized and would help them want to be in those positions more because it is a tough position to be in to do all the work and then somebody else gets the closing deal and credit for it, right? So
Yeah.
let's talk about this a bit more specifically, the field marketing and the level of preparation. We kind of started the conversation here. If field marketers had the same level of preparation and intelligence as a great sales rep may have, do you think something would change? And if so, what do you think would change?
Wow, that's a loaded question. Wow, how do I break that down? So I'll break it down into two parts. It's what will change internally for the actual marketer and what will change for the business and the outcomes for the business. But before we even get to that change, I question whether field marketers will be able to actually internalize all of that data. Like, is that a motivation for them? And I asked that question because I sat in the marketer seat. I've been up against really aggressive growth goals. So my question is, will they take the time to do the due diligence and the research, even if that research was given to them in an ISAP, in a report? Will they read that report? Will they internalize that information? And will they understand how to translate that information to their KPIs, to their business outcomes? So that's one question that I have, and I'm going to push back on. And it's a question that we can ask the audience, and they can engage in the comments. Secondly, what will change in terms of the marketer's world? 180 flip life change when you get access to that intelligence and you really consume that intelligence and understand how to apply it to your day-to-day, your life will change dramatically. And what does that look like? That looks like, sorry, squirrel moment. That is a massive eagle right out my window. Very cool.
Oh,
I
beautiful.
like nature. Okay. What will change in terms of their life? One is they're enriching their knowledge about like buyer preferences, buyer motivations, buyer understanding, which when you compound that knowledge, you are unstoppable as a marketer. I promise you. I'm saying this from experience because I knew jack shit about buyers like 6 years ago. Sorry, can I curse?
I mean, yeah, of course.
Okay.
Be you.
Well, you can always bleep it out. Your life will change, especially when you compound that growth. Secondly, once you understand those like those signals, those things about people, your confidence increases. And then when your confidence increases, your ability to outreach yourself and build your own network increases your net worth as a marketer. And it opens up doors and opportunities that you would never have expected. Secondly, just from an internal standpoint, you will be respected deeply inside your organization because you know that you've taken that shift in how you understand people and the buyers that you care about and are trying to persuade to convert. From a business outcome, and I've seen this happen in as little as 3 to 6 months, which isn't a long time, especially when you're looking, a lot of the vendors out there are looking to sell enterprise. Those deals take anywhere between 12 to 18 months. But in as little as 3 to 6 months from a business outcome, if a field marketer is deeply engaged in understanding the buyer and getting all those signals and all the research around the buyer, and they know how to apply that to their strategies and tactics, in as little as 3 to 6 months, they're going to be able to see an impact on pipeline and revenue because they've more successfully and more strategically designed their programs around what buyers need, or around what creates value for them, around who they should be bringing in the room, around how they should be designing these programs from an events perspective. Maybe it's not a steak dinner, maybe it's, again, something immersive at an event, around where and when they should be designing, and regionally who should be, where they should be pinpointing now more than ever. So it's like, it's quick outcomes once a field marketer really leans into that research. I know that was a long-winded answer, but there are components to that. So
yeah, so let me follow up on this a little bit, because where you started versus where you then ended is very interesting for me, because there is this, and that's what you said, maybe the audience want to comment on it because you wanted to push back a little bit on what will they actually use, can they digest all this data. Do you think if they could walk into meetings and say something like, these 4 deals right here had decision makers at our event, they moved from stalled to active within 60, 90, whatever it may be, days, and the program influenced $3 million in pipeline? Like, that would be real documented impact. Do you think that has to happen first for them then to understand that the data that they may have had up front or the insights help them close those deals would be useful? Or how would you position that?
Can you repeat that question for me?
So if you think about giving field marketers a tool that they're able to, let's say, track the context notes in a record of CRM, or they're able to do pre-event attendee tagging, or standardized lead capture at the point of contact. So having that attribution model of what happened all the way before that last touch point, and then enabling them going into a meeting saying, these deals had decision makers at my event. They moved from stalled into active within however many days and helped us close $3 million in pipeline. Because I feel like right now, I'm not sure field marketers have the tools to do that, right? They just know,
very, very hard.
I talked to this person at some point, but how do you then prove that that actually helped you unstall a deal or close a deal later, even if you weren't the last person to have the conversation? Obviously, field marketer and events have a huge piece in that. So my question was, is that what needs to happen first for them to see the value in the data? Or how do you approach it to say this data is valuable to you and here's why?
Well, those are the actual data points I think would interested the stakeholders, CMO, the board, CRO, from a tactical, like from a maybe just internal marketing perspective. I think there's a lot more KPIs and components to measure, but those hands down, if we can measure time to close, deals that have moved out of stalled to active, pipeline, and not just stage 0, like active pipeline that's past stage 0, and accounts. I think that's a really strong position to be in. to show the ROI and the value of just continuing on that trajectory and repeating that process consistently.
And I
Especially
think you
time to close. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that exists in parts again for sales, but not for field marketing, right? And
Yeah,
to the same
it's
amount.
very hard. It's very hard. I remember, Kristen, I remember sitting and creating these decks years ago before we could just spin something up through Cowork or ChatGPT or whatever, right? Whatever we use, Gamma, I don't know. Just like digging through Salesforce data and manually digging through spreadsheets and then putting that in a stupid PPT and like having to present 10 minutes to the all hands. And it's just like, it took me a week and a half to do all that all that work,
Yeah.
right? So if you have a platform which could already measure that for me, I mean, that's gold. That's gold, right? Tells the story of why we did this. Well, and that's another thing. You have to be able to tell the story in the data. It's one thing to say,
Mhm.
oh, we did this and it moved deals to here and it moves deals to there. But I think having the research behind the accounts and behind the people helps you tell a better story with the data. The one thing I learned from one of my CMO mentors, Chris Gabler, when I worked with him at Guardicore, is if you're going to present something, don't present numbers, tell a story. And I think that
Mhm.
rings true for CISOs too. Like they have to
Yeah.
tell a story with their data to the
Yeah.
board. So it's the same thing for a field marketer, CRO, CMO.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree 100%. And I don't think the gap is effort, right? Field marketers
No.
work their butts off. I think the gap here, or at least a big piece of the gap, is intelligence of who's coming. And you said it earlier. Why do they matter? What accounts do they connect to? What does sales need to know, and what's like the next step? What should happen next to make this successful? An event should not be a standalone moment, right? It should connect to the account plan before, during, and after. All along, like you said, the story of it, the whole part. And you mentioned it earlier, because we're proud of our ISAPs, right? That's kind of what could be part of what that looks like in practice. It's important to have record, and this is where the women in spam comes in, and the recognition pieces, because I think a big piece of why women in spam is resonating right now, because there has been this invisible piece to it, and people are hoping that it becomes visible now, and through women of spam, that's happening. There's more of a lens on it now than it has ever been, and I think it very much deserves that. So, I have one last follow-up question on this, but if you could give advice on how organizations should measure their field marketing differently if they want to capture real impact, do you have any advice how they can do that better? Measure impact of field marketing?
Yeah. Excuse me. This is also a loaded question.
I'm known for loaded questions.
No, I like it. It's getting, getting me to think deeply here. So, I'll just kind of throw out a laundry list, which I think is important.
Sure.
Measuring field. I don't think it's number of events, though I do think consistency and quantity to a certain extent is important, right, for deepening relationships. And it ties to deepening. How many deep relationships have you established with people from those target accounts? And remember that there's a whole buying committee within those target accounts, so you should be multi-threading there. Second is, are you tapped into strategic locations that make sense for your particular market? Or are you going on markets that are just like not lucrative for the business? So that ties also to time to close, and also opportunity creation and deal size. Do the stories we tell, this is more qualitative, do the stories we tell tied to the events resonate or not? So that's a qualitative point right there. Like you actually have to be measuring, like, is what we're sharing going to convert them to deals. That's something that I don't think a lot of people do, because they're looking for the quant numbers. Opportunity creation, obviously, from that event, and then time to close. I think I mentioned that. Those are kind of the main ones. But first and foremost, focus on how many deep relationships have you established. I think I learned from my good friends Maria Graham and Carlos Guerrero, like, the one thing that I'm going to do at this regional event is come out with new friends. And you know, that, like, that's new, that could be new connections for you, or just new relationships. And that's the starting point, is like, do you actually care about the people, or are you looking at them just as a number? Because it's not one and done with just that one event. You have to continue nurturing that relationship, whether it's LinkedIn or seeing them at another event or following up with them via text message or email. So those are kind of the ones that I use, and I think are going to help field marketers be very successful in telling a good story for the ROI of an event.
I love that. Yeah. And just listening to you, there's so much that sits before that last badge scan, right before that last. There's so
Oh my
much.
gosh, the badge scans.
Yes. Yeah. There's so much that sits before that, so much effort. So it just, to me, underlines the importance of having record of those things. Yeah, go ahead.
100%. There's one thing I just want to kind of like spew out there. Please, please, please. This is for the organizations listening and who have a field marketing team, or send marketing people to rep the booth. Train your employees on just common, like, courtesy and how to engage with people at a booth. And that's one. Second, train them on what they actually do. Even like I've seen field marketers that do not know what their company's product or service does, and that's an issue.
Great.
Because they're so, like, stuck in the day-to-day work that they're not opening up even to understand, like, basic knowledge of their product, let alone the intel of the buyers. Like, they don't even know what they do. And so
it's more like butts and seats, right? That's really what it is. And that,
yeah, it's like, oh, well, you know, and just train them on, like, etiquette. Like, if I'm coming to your booth and I say, I am not an active buyer, I'm not a security practitioner, I just want to peek in. No, we have to scan your badge regardless. I'm like, no, you don't. Because I'm gonna opt out so fast when I told you not to send me that email, and they send it any goddamn way. So there's just basic etiquette too. So those are like the three things I just wish organizations cared more about, is like how your presence shows up at the event itself as well. There's etiquette to that.
Yeah. And I think it again underlines how people in the field have to be so many things. And they're not just one thing, right? They have to have all of these different skill sets, which you can see in other scenarios, like, let's say, operations, or, you know, but I think for field marketing, it just has been so harshly assumed that it's just the event. But the strategy, we said it earlier, right? Revenue knowledge and understanding how the business works as a whole and how things fit together. And then again, that relationship building part and the communication pieces, like, all of that comes together. It's so valuable, and it feels like it's been undervalued. Not everywhere, of course, but for a while, like, generally as a whole. I was going to ask you as a last question, and maybe this is what you kind of did already just now, is if there's one thing you wish more people understood about field marketing, what would it be? Do you have anything to add? Because it felt like what you just said was very important.
There's obviously, like, the revenue component to field marketing, but there's also very much a big brand component to field marketing as well. And sometimes that's hard to measure, but I think people need to understand that field marketing, as honestly as unsexy as it sounds, is very sexy right now.
I don't think
and
it's unsexy. Do you think it's unsexy?
I'm a field marketer. Like,
I come from process. That's unsexy.
Okay, I don't know. I'm subjective. I don't think field marketing sounds sexy at all.
Okay,
We should maybe redefine what that, no, but then that would make people busy in redefining what it means. Definitions. Who needs more definitions? What I'm saying is, like, there's there's an art to storytelling in the field as well, not just on media, on camera, on social media, and digital work. There's the brand perception is equally important as getting the deals through the door for your events. And sometimes there's not a one-to-one, right,
Mhm.
to opportunity that we can measure because of our brand presence, right? Um, it's a lot to unpack, but like it's both brand and demand field, right? So you equally have to treat both as separate unified programs, if that makes sense, or separate unified goals, or if that makes sense. I don't know. Not making sense at all.
Okay.
But and it ties back to what I was saying earlier is like what you say, your story, and how it ties back to your value
Mhm.
proposition and your brand matters deeply at these events, whether it's a large trade show or a regional road show, small event, curated event, matters deeply. So you should treat both in equal weight in terms of how you want your brand to be perceived and understood
Mhm.
as concisely as possible. And then the people, and why did I like mention the people manning or repping the booth? They are direct representation of your brand, which is why they need to be well versed and well trained in what they're going to say and how it's going to tie back to a campaign or the brand positioning, whatever. So it's a lot more holistic than field marketing. Like that's just such a little sliver of the real weight of running in-person events and experiences.
Yeah. I think that's what I'm taking away from this conversation, right? That again, it is so much bigger. I hear you talking about relationship building, communications, brand awareness. There's so much more that holistically goes into closing deals successfully and representing your brand successfully. I know you have heard, but here at Delph, what we're trying to do is bring structure to things that aren't structured within field marketing, right? We know the events have always mattered. We know the infrastructure to prove that did not. And that's what we're trying to change. So for me, it's really good to hear about the other parts as well, because with me being in ops in my role, I'm very much focused sort of on the measurements and the structures and the processes, the unsexy stuff that I call unsexy. But
But
what
those
we're
are the
really
foundations.
Yes, those are the foundations, and they don't get talked about a lot, right? No matter what field you're in, that's just the reality of it. So, what we're trying to do is really giving it a record. And I think having that record will improve that visibility and it will improve that recognition. And it may even, in some parts, bring more visibility into those relationship pieces and how much they matter, and those brand pieces that you're talking about, the communication side that matters, even though numbers and structure doesn't sound like relationships and communication. But ultimately, when you see outcomes, you can start learning what matters. And I think that's maybe what will move the needle.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I'm taking away from the conversation. Um, really, I don't have additional questions. Is there anything that you took away specifically that you felt
Oh
stood
no,
out?
you know, it really got me to feel how critical in-person human proximity is now more than ever. Just talking through this is gives me even more conviction to go even deeper on curating really good events and then distributing it digitally as social shows. So I'm really excited to continue this conversation with you because I do want to
Yeah.
kind of drill down to show people how Delve has helped me curate really good events with really great security leaders who are in market to buy. And that's just a dream for any vendor, honestly. Um, so yeah, I think we should do like a part two and kind of get
Absolutely.
under the hood and show people how it's working to help me with my custom experiential programs or help me with CISO games. So I'd love to show people behind the hood or under the hood.
Yeah, we would love that. I would love that. And I, like I said, I'll be at Blackhead as well. So we'll meet you there, of course.
Hmm.
But Thank you so much for taking the time. I know your schedule is just as busy as everybody
No,
else's right
this is
now.
fun.
So I really, really do appreciate it. Thank you for sharing your insights and being so open and honest. I love that. And I hope we'll do it again. I really do.
Perfect. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Take care, Dani.
All right.